For decades, a phantom gripped India's largest cities in a state of terror. The police had no fingerprints, no motive, and no name for the man who crushed his victims in their sleep. They only had the legend of the Stoneman. To understand how someone operates with such complete detachment, we have to look at his origins. At around 15 years old, he lived entirely on the streets, surviving through begging and petty theft, completely invisible to the world around him. One night, while setting up his bedding on the pavement, he watched a drunken man bludgeon his own wife to death with a heavy rock, right there on the street. The dead woman's baby was left crying beside her body. But instead of terror or pity, the teenager felt something else. The sound of the infant's cries brought him a twisted sense of pleasure. Wanting to hear it stop, he picked up a rock of his own and crushed the infant. It was his first kill. Because the victims were a homeless family, nobody came looking for them. The police files for those weeks remained empty. In a world where these victims were already invisible, their disappearances went unrecorded, and their killer was left to realize that no one was looking for him. Look at this photograph of the densely packed streets of Mumbai. Here he migrated as an adult, vanishing into the chaotic, sprawling population. Here he started an affair with a local bar dancer. When she eventually left him, the rejection triggered a violent, unhinged rage. Wandering the streets at night, he found a family sleeping outside their hut and tried to strike their young daughter with a stone, but he failed. She woke up screaming, her family intervened, and he barely escaped capture. Impulsive attacks were too risky. This animated timeline maps out his refined strategy. He developed a strict stalking routine, observing isolated, homeless individuals for an entire week to learn exactly when and where they slept before making his final strike. By 1984, the results of this method surfaced in Mumbai's Sion and King's Circle neighborhoods. Police found 12 different bodies, all transient, all with their skulls completely crushed. The heavy, bloodied stones were left right next to them. He began leaving the murder weapons directly beside his victims. Despite these obvious pieces of evidence, investigators found the surfaces wiped clean, leaving them with the weapon, but no trail to the hand that held it. The sheer volume of the bodies forced a massive police crackdown in those neighborhoods. Suspects were quickly arrested, and night patrols intensified. To survive, the killer realized he couldn't stay in one territory. This image shows the bustling streets of Kolkata. In 1989, he shifted operations here, seeking refuge in a completely different cultural landscape. For a few months, he laid low, enjoying the local food and the new environment. But by the time the intense summer heat set in, his violent urges returned. This photograph captures the area around the massive Howrah Bridge. Under this structure, he found his first Kolkata target, an elderly woman sleeping entirely alone. As he moved into Kolkata, his process remained cold and disciplined. He was seen pulling on tight-fitting gloves before selecting a stone, maintaining the same forensic silence that had baffled the Mumbai police. Soon, he was killing at least 2 people every month. Local journalists noticed the pattern of crushed skulls and missing fingerprints, and they officially dubbed the unknown assailant the Stoneman. That name triggered citywide panic. Nobody dared sleep outside. A joint task force formed, pulling officers from across the country. His anonymity in the city was gone, and he had to abandon his hunting grounds once again. This photograph shows the streets of Guwahati in Assam. This was his next destination, putting immense distance between himself and the massive police dragnet. With a national task force now tracking his signature, lingering in one area for a week-long stalk became a liability. To stay ahead of the authorities, he traded his calculated routine for raw speed, striking opportunistically and moving on before a crime scene could even be processed. While walking late at night, he spotted a drunken beggar asleep on the ground. Without hesitation, he simply picked up a large rock nearby and bludgeoned the man to death on the spot. This map shows the immense geographic scale of his new pattern, spanning entirely different regions of India. For 20 years, he maintained this hit-and-run tactic. He would arrive in a new city, execute a single murder, and instantly vanish. This constant, unpredictable migration perfectly exploited the system. Local police jurisdictions rarely communicated with one another, allowing him to slip through their blind spots again and again. The investigation became even more complicated when his infamy peaked. Copycat killers began emerging in Mumbai and Madhya Pradesh, crushing victims with stones purely for the media attention. But despite a nationwide manhunt that spanned multiple decades, law enforcement never managed to uncover the real killer's true identity. To this day, profilers struggle to understand the depths of his psychology. The specific obsession with heavy stones and the compulsion to target the homeless remains an enigma. The Stoneman was never caught, he never stood trial, and the case files remain open. He is still a free man. By strictly preying on the most invisible members of society, the Stoneman achieved something terrifying. He became completely invisible himself, leaving the lingering threat that he could still be out there, looking for his next target.